September 21st, 1960 11:47 at night. The back room behind the bar is too narrow for comfort. One weak bulb hangs over a table that looks staged, clean edges, nothing spilled. Bumpy Johnson stands near the wall, hat low, coat buttoned, calm like he's waiting on a late delivery. Frank Lucas is 3 feet away, dressed sharp, shoulders relaxed, smiling like this is a favor he's doing for Harlem. The door opens, and the air changes. 3 men step in first, then more behind them. White faces, hard eyes, coats that don't belong on Lenox Avenue. The lead man speaks like he's reading off a contract. 50,000, he says. We're here for Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy doesn't flinch. The lead man takes 1 step forward, then glances at Frank like he needs approval. Frank gives him a small nod. That nod is the whole setup. Bumpy turns his head slightly toward Frank, voice low. You brought them. Frank's smile tightens. Not here, he whispers. What nobody knew, Bumpy didn't walk into this blind. He'd heard about the 50,000 days ago, and he'd been waiting for one man to prove it. September 18th, 19602, 18 inches the afternoon. The room isn't in Harlem. It never is. A private spot downtown, with thick curtains and stale air. Men sit spaced out on purpose, like distance keeps them safer. Cigarette smoke hangs low over the table like a second ceiling. The name Vincent Gigante doesn't get introduced. It gets stated. One voice says it flat. The chin wants it done. A glass clinks softly. Somebody lights a cigar slow, like time is a luxury. Some say Vito Genovese's circle is behind it. Others say it's just men trying to impress the Genovese name. Either way, the point is clear. Harlem is getting in the way. A man leans forward. Bumpy Johnson's got the numbers running clean. Another answers colder. He's got Harlem locked. And locks get broken, a third voice says, like it's nothing. Frank Costello's name gets mentioned like a warning. Carlo Gambino's name comes right after it, because money doesn't move unless somebody approves the movement. But here's the thing, nobody in that room wants Italians walking into Harlem for this. Too loud, too much attention, too many bodies that can't be explained later. So they talk about access instead. How you get to him, someone asks. Silence. Then a name drops like a decision. Frank Lucas. That name changes the temperature. Because Frank is inside. Frank stands behind Bumpy in rooms where other men don't even breathe wrong. A man taps ash into a tray. What's the number? 50,000, another answers. Cash. And who collects? Someone asks. Nobody smiles. Because collecting isn't just killing. It's delivering proof. They choose men who don't care about Harlem, men who want to make it ugly, men who work cheap and talk loud. The KKK. Not because they run New York, because they're disposable. A man in the corner speaks like he's finalizing paperwork. They don't move blind, he says. They need directions. Another voice answers clean. They'll get directions. September 19th, 19609. 6 inches the morning. Lenox Avenue wakes up like it always does. Store gates rattle up, coffee cups steam in hands that never stop moving. A man shouts for a cab like he owns the street. But the eyes are different today. They don't drift. They track. Bumpy walks through it calm, hat low, coat clean, moving like he isn't in a hurry to meet anybody. He passes Small's Paradise like it's just another building. But the men outside watch him the way people watch a storm that never hits them directly. Inside, up a narrow staircase, Bumpy's office is quiet. A desk, a chair, a lamp with a weak circle of light. A man waits near the window, nervous in the shoulders, trying to look useful. Words moving, the man says, they saying 50,000. Bumpy doesn't react. He just studies the man's mouth, the speed of the words, the way his eyes keep sliding to the door. Bumpy already heard it twice before breakfast. He heard it from a bartender on 125th. He heard it from a cab driver who doesn't even know he's an informant. Same number, same threat. 2 different mouths. Bumpy asks one question, quiet and exact. Who told you first? The man hesitates, then answers too fast. Frank, he says. Frank said, keep you informed. Bumpy nods once, like that's helpful. But the moment passes slower inside his head. Because last night, a runner told him the bounty came from a stranger. This morning, it came from Frank. Bumpy doesn't need a confession. He needs a pattern. He reaches into his coat and pulls out a small envelope. He sets it on the desk without opening it. The man's eyes drop to it immediately, like he can't stop himself. Bumpy notices. "That's the mistake," Bumpy says softly. "You watching the wrong things." The man freezes, unsure if he should speak. Bumpy stands and buttons his coat. "You go back outside," Bumpy says. "You listen. You don't repeat nothing." The man nods and leaves fast. Bumpy stays alone in the office, looking down at Harlem through the glass. He isn't asking if there's a betrayal anymore. He's asking how close it is. September 20th, 19606, 31 inches the evening. Frank Lucas walks into the Teresa Hotel like he belongs there. Not loud, not hiding, just calm, dressed sharp, moving like the lobby is his living room. He doesn't go to the front desk. He heads straight for a back hall where a man is waiting near the service door. The man doesn't offer his name. He doesn't need to. He's Genovese muscle by posture alone, shoulders squared, eyes empty, hands still. Frank stops close enough to speak without being overheard. "You got a message from Gigante?" Frank asks. The man nods once. "He wants to know if you serious." Frank smiles a little, not happy, just certain. "I'm serious," Frank says, "but I don't work for free." The man's eyes narrow. "You asking for the whole 50? Frank shakes his head slow. "Half now, half when it's done." The man studies him like he's deciding what kind of animal he is. "And Bumpy?" the man asks. Frank's smile doesn't move, but his eyes do. "He'll walk in," Frank says. "He trusts me." But here's the thing, Frank doesn't say it like a friend. He says it like a tool he owns. The man steps closer. The chin don't like loose ends. Frank nods. "There won't be any." A pause. Then the man lowers his voice. "The Klan boys coming up. They want to make noise." Frank's face stays calm. "Let them," he says. "Noise helps. Makes it look like they did it on their own." The man's mouth tightens like he doesn't love the idea, but he understands it. Frank adjusts his cuff like he's finishing a business meeting. "Where do they meet?" Frank asks. The man answers, "Behind a bar on 142nd. Tight entrance, easy to control." Frank nods once, already seeing the room in his mind. He steps back, then adds one last line. Quiet. "Tell Gigante Harlem comes with proof." September 21st, 1969, 14 at night. The message reaches Bumpy through the church. Not a priest on a pulpit. A church lady in a coat that smells like cold air and incense. She finds him outside Small's Paradise and doesn't waste time. "They got the boy from Street Nicholas," she says. "They grabbed him walking home." Bumpy's face stays still, but his eyes sharpen. The kid isn't family, but in Harlem that doesn't matter. A kid is a line. "Who told you?" Bumpy asks. She glances around like the street might answer first. "They told the mother. They said you come alone or he don't come back." And that's the mistake, because whoever said it knew exactly what would pull Bumpy out of his seat. Bumpy steps toward the curb. He moves like he's already decided. Frank Lucas appears out of the dark almost immediately, clean and calm, like he was waiting for the cue. "I heard," Frank says. "I got a car." Bumpy looks at him once. "You hear from who?" Frank doesn't hesitate. "Word travels," he says, smiling like it's normal. But here's the thing. Frank is always just arriving right when the pressure hits. Bumpy gets in the back seat without argument. That's what makes it dangerous. Trust looks like routine. The driver pulls off. Frank rides up front, talking low like he's keeping everybody calm. "They're trying to scare you," Frank says. "They want you emotional." Bumpy watches the street through the glass. He doesn't answer. They pass 125th. They cut west, then north again, not fast, not direct. The kind of route you take when you want to make sure nobody can say you were followed. Bumpy notices the same car twice, a block back, then gone. He notices a second one parked wrong, like it doesn't belong. Frank keeps talking like none of it exists. "We go in," Frank says. "We talk. We bring the kid home." Bumpy's voice stays flat. "We?" Frank turns slightly, smile in place. "I'm with you," he says. Bumpy looks out at Street Nicholas Avenue as they pass, the streetlights cutting across Frank's face in quick pieces. Bumpy doesn't argue. He lets Frank keep playing loyal, because Bumpy already knows this isn't about the kid. It's about who gets Bumpy to open a door. September 21st, 1960, 4 at night. The door behind the bar looks wrong before they even touch it. The light above it flickers steady like it's being controlled. The alley is too quiet. No bottles, no footsteps, no noise from inside. Frank walks ahead like he's guiding a guest. "Right here," Frank says. "Quick." Bumpy steps past him first. Inside, the room smells like old smoke and damp wood. One bulb hangs low, buzzing like it's tired. The table is set too clean. A glass of water sits in the center like somebody placed it for a picture. No kid, no mother, no proof. Bumpy stops and lets the silence sit. Frank clears his throat. "They'll bring him out," he says. "They want you to sit first." Too smooth. Too rehearsed. Bumpy turns his head slightly toward Frank. "Who told you that?" he asks. Frank doesn't blink. "It's how these things work," he says. Bumpy nods slowly like he accepts it, then steps closer to the table and sets a small roll of bills down, quiet and controlled. Frank's eyes drop to the money for half a second. Bumpy catches it. "That's it," Bumpy says softly. "That's the tell." Frank's smile tightens. "What you talking about?" Bumpy doesn't raise his voice. He points his chin toward the hallway. "Who back there?" he asks. Frank laughs once, trying to make it light. "Nobody," he says. "You always paranoid." Bumpy tilts his head. "Talk don't hide," he answers. The bulb flickers once. Not random. A clean blink like a signal. Frank doesn't react like a man surprised. He reacts like a man waiting. His shoulders shift slightly toward the exit. His feet angle that way without permission. Bumpy watches him like he's measuring distance. "Frank," Bumpy says quiet, "you sweating for a man who said this was clean." Frank forces the smile again, but his eyes won't hold steady. From the hallway, boots scrape once. Then another scrape. Then the room goes still. And Bumpy stops looking at the hallway. He keeps his eyes on Frank. Because the betrayal is standing right next to him. September 21st, 1960, 11:47 at night. The bulb flickers again, then steadies. The room holds quiet like it's waiting for permission to turn violent. Bumpy stands near the table, hands low, face calm. Frank is a step behind him, half turned toward the door like his body already decided where safety is. A voice comes from the hallway, smiling. "That him?" Another voice answers, "Close." "That's him." Men step into the light. Not Harlem, not even close. White faces, hard eyes, cheap coats that look new. They move like they were promised money and a story. The lead man speaks like he owns the room. 50,000, he says. "We here for Bumpy Johnson." Bumpy looks at him once, slow, like he's reading a bad contract. "You in the wrong neighborhood," Bumpy says. The lead man smirks. "We ain't wrong. We got directions." He takes a step forward. Before the second step, his eyes cut to Frank. Quick, automatic, like checking a boss. Frank gives him a small nod. That nod says everything in the room without saying a word. Bumpy turns his head slightly toward Frank. "You brought them," Bumpy says. Frank's smile tightens like it's glued on. "Don't do this," he whispers. "Not here." Bumpy looks back at the men. One of them carries a coil in his hand like he brought it for a show. Another keeps patting his pocket like he's making sure something is still there. Bumpy lifts his hands slowly, palms open. Not fear, not panic, a choice. But here's the thing, Bumpy isn't surrendering. He's setting the space. The lead man steps closer, greedy now. The others crowd behind him. The doorway tightens with bodies. Too many men in a room that can't hold them. Bumpy shifts his weight and drags the chair sideways with his heel. The scrape is loud. The lead man stumbles. The line breaks for half a second. Bumpy drives the table forward into the crowd, not to punish them, to jam them. The bulb swings hard, shadows jumping across faces. Someone panics and shoves the wrong direction. A shot cracks into plaster. Now the room erupts. Men bump shoulders. Somebody trips over the chair. The doorway clogs instantly with bodies trying to move at the same time. Bumpy stays low and moves through the confusion like he planned it. He doesn't chase the loudest man. He moves toward the weakest one, the one creating the jam. Two men go down hard. Another slams into the wall and stays there. A third tries to push back through the hallway but can't. Frank freezes at the edge of it, eyes wide now, watching his own plan collapse. Bumpy snaps a look at him. "Stay right there." Frank's face strains. He doesn't move. He can't, not without proving what he is. Seconds later, the noise dies. One outsider is left upright, shaking, staring at Bumpy like he stepped into a rule he didn't know existed. Bumpy steps close enough to make the man lift his eyes. "You're gonna walk out," Bumpy says. "You're gonna tell Gigante what you saw." The man nods fast, too scared to speak. Bumpy turns his head toward Frank one last time. "We ain't done," Bumpy says. Frank doesn't answer. He just watches Bumpy like he's looking at something he can't beat. September 21st, 1960, 9 just after midnight. Harlem doesn't call police for this. Harlem handles it. The bulb still swings. The table sits crooked. The air smells burned and stale. Men move fast and quiet. A lock turns. A handle gets wiped clean. A window gets pulled down. Bumpy stands in the doorway, hat on, coat straight, looking like the room didn't even raise his pulse. Frank is gone. He vanished the moment it got loud. Bumpy doesn't chase him tonight. He doesn't need to. He crouches in front of the survivor, voice calm. "You know who sent you?" The man nods, shaking hard. Bumpy places a matchbook in his hand like a receipt. "You deliver that," he says. "You tell Gigante Harlem don't pay bounties. Harlem collects." Script, Part 5, final to 500 words. Chapter 9. The Message. September 22nd, 19608, 12 inches the morning. The survivor walks like the sidewalk might turn on him. He keeps one hand closed tight, knuckles white, holding the matchbook like it's the only reason he's still breathing. Bumpy's men don't escort him all the way. They don't need to. Harlem has its own invisible ropes. A man stays on his path when the whole neighborhood is watching. He reaches 125th Street and slows down. The morning is busy, but people make space around him like they can feel trouble. A vendor looks up and goes quiet. A cab driver keeps rolling without stopping. A woman pulls her child closer and doesn't look back. The survivor turns off the main street and heads toward a building Frank uses when he wants quiet. Clean brick, quiet doorway, the kind of place that tries to look like it's not connected to anything. He knocks. One knock. A pause. Two more. The door opens a crack, and a man looks him over like he's deciding if this is worth opening wider. "Who you?" the man asks. The survivor swallows. "Bumpy sent me." The crack widens fast. Inside, Frank Lucas stands in a pressed shirt like he slept 8 hours, hair sharp, face clean, calm posture. His eyes land on the survivor, and the calm slips for half a second. Frank's voice stays controlled. "What is this?" The survivor opens his fist. The matchbook sits in his palm like proof. Frank takes it between two fingers like he doesn't want it touching him. He studies it for a second, and the muscles in his jaw tighten. Then a voice comes from behind the survivor, calm and close. "Bumpy." He stands in the hallway like he belongs there, hat low, coat buttoned, eyes flat. Frank turns slow, and the smile tries to show up but can't commit. "Bumpy," Frank says, "you really walked in here." Bumpy doesn't smile back. He steps forward just enough to tighten the air. The survivor backs away without being told, like instinct is moving him. Bumpy looks at Frank for a long moment, quiet enough to make the room feel smaller. Then he speaks one line, cold, final, law-like. "You don't sell Harlem and live here." Frank's face locks. He doesn't yell. He doesn't deny it. He can't, not with the survivor standing there as a living receipt. Frank swallows once. "This is bigger than you," he says. Bumpy nods slightly, like he expected that lie. "It don't get bigger than home," Bumpy answers. Bumpy turns away like the conversation is finished. At the doorway, he stops just long enough to add one more thing, quiet and exact. "You used outsiders," Bumpy says. "Now you live like one." Then he walks out. September 22nd, 1960, 3 at night. Some people swear it happened exactly like that. Others say Harlem cleaned up the story the way it cleans up everything quiet and fast. But the parts that matter don't change. A bounty gets named, a right hand turns. Outsiders step in too bold. One man walks out shaking. A message gets delivered. Harlem isn't a market, it's territory. If you're still here, subscribe. And answer this. If you were Bumpy, do you end Frank that night? Or let him walk so everybody sees what he is?